so generic, but I do love this question. What if you had a time machine? Would you go back in time or into the future, and why? Let's start with Ron.
I would definitely go back into the future. Wait, no, I would go back into the past. Sorry. Wow. No, I go back into the past because I would actually love to explore kind of like the 50s and the 60s, that sort of vibe. That's definitely my kind of cup of tea. And all those other things in terms of prehistoric times, looking at dinosaurs, that sort of thing is really definitely my vibe too. But I'd go back versus forward.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm like neither. I feel like I'd set off something that wasn't supposed to happen, or something disastrous would happen. Like I'd swat a fly, and it would just set off a series of really unfortunate events, and then I would be responsible for it. But maybe the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Probably would end up getting eaten by like a T-Rex or something.
I would go hardcore back to Middle Ages and bring my phone and maybe just have fun. Before 30 minutes later you're burnt at the stake as a witch. But I think it would be really interesting to see. Definitely not going forward. That would be very depressing, potentially.
So we'd all go back in time, Cam.
I think it's fair because, I mean, looking at I'm fascinated by things back in the past, like the Black Plague. That whole time was some time that we would never want to live in, but it's fascinating that people had to go through that. But I also love like the 1920s and the way they dressed, especially in like London. And I mean, Peaky Blinders is one of my favorite shows. So maybe things are a little bit more, they look a lot better on a TV show, but I think it's fascinating just how nice they always dressed with suits, and it's just such a different time nowadays. Everybody wears T-shirts compared to how much more
you have a choice, Cam.
Yeah, you're right. You do have a choice, but I live in Florida and it's 90 to 100 degrees every day, so the choice is not a suit.
I think you're saying you really want to go back to wear a giant bird mask, right?
Definitely not. No. Are you trying to say that I'm like a jester? Am I the jester of the group? Because I will be. I do like being a jester. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Transcend Talks. This is very exciting. We're going to obviously talk about navigating the internal dynamics of coming from a legacy tool to something like Transcend. So we really appreciate you joining us. And if you have questions, please send them in the comments. We're really excited to have you all here. I'm seeing a lot of chatter in there. So thank you to Ruth, Elizabeth, Suzanne. We got a lot of people going through. So if you have any questions that come up, we'll be happy to jump on them. So let's go ahead and introduce everyone. We'll start with our special guest from the outside, Kat. If you want to go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go around the room.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Kat. I'm the head of privacy and security at GoCardless, which is a fintech / payment service provider here in the UK, but serving a lot of other countries around the world. And I have worked in privacy and security for the past 5 years and have worked in other small fintechs and large companies, and also did a law degree with focus in privacy. So I feel like I have a lot of opinions on privacy.
Absolutely. Ron?
Hey everyone, Ron DeJesus here, Transcend's new field chief privacy officer. Before joining Transcend, I was the CPO at Grindr, and then head of privacy at Tinder and Match Group, and also Coach. So I've been in privacy for about 15 years now and have had a ton of experience implementing and operationalizing privacy tooling, migrating off of legacy platforms. And now my job at Transcend is to just engage with the CPO community to better understand their pain points, engage with them in terms of what keeps them up at night, how are they dealing with their current legacy platforms. So I'm really excited to share some tips and kind of my journey operationalizing, migrating off, selecting better platforms. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Ron. Safaa?
Great. Yeah, it's great to be on with all the privacy nerds over here. So name is Safaa, program manager for customer privacy operations over here at Transcend. I got into privacy, I guess, like several years ago, but I really got to get into the corporate side of it about maybe like 3.5 years ago. So I was the global privacy wrangler over at Go Brands. It was an awesome experience because it was a fast-paced, just pre-IPO kind of startup environment, very fast-paced, and had mergers and acquisitions happening. So definitely absorbing a lot of privacy programs and different folks doing different things and having different procedures than maybe wouldn't necessarily what was happening over at HQ. So it was an awesome time to be there. Got to really grow the privacy program from the ground up. It was just a really great experience. One of my biggest things was that I needed to have an umbrella to hold all the different privacy ops from the EU, UK, US, and California, all in one place, and was kind of desperate for a privacy tool. There was not really a choice whether or not we could have one. We really just needed something to operationalize and streamline, save teams money and time as well. So really Transcend was a huge, huge leap for us, going from a legacy privacy tool provider that just was very manual, could not take the amount of DSARs we were getting, and absolutely could not do the data mapping that we needed. So I got Transcend, did the full implementation, and then drank the Kool-Aid, and now I'm here. So looking forward to chatting with you all.
Awesome, thank you. And thanks to all three of you for being here with me. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Cameron. I am the host and marketing manager at Transcend. But let's go ahead and kick things off. So just to give you a little bit of an insight on why we're here today, what we're talking about, a lot of us, as you can see with everybody's experience on this panel today, everybody has kind of experienced that internal process of trying to navigate conversations with leadership and tools and, just dealing with, if you're not happy with something that you're currently using, or you're afraid to have that conversation, or you don't know how or where to start, or, how to even understand that you need new tools. That's why we're talking today. So we're going to dive into some of that things, maybe help you give a little bit of confidence and some new ideas and perspectives on how to change that mindset going into 2024. So first of all, let's go into some of the tipping points. Now I'm going to start with you, Ron. Tell us a little bit about some of your tipping points and your story a little bit, to how you kind of understood what those were.
Yeah, where do I begin? There are a lot of straws that figuratively broke the camel's back for me when I was using legacy tooling. I think, and something that I hear again from the CPO community, a lot of this has kind of resonated with the folks that I'm speaking with that are on legacy tooling right now. Primarily lack of support. And for me specifically, I felt like a number at times. I felt like, I wasn't top of mind for the folks that were providing that support. Even though I had the highest level of support at this legacy platform, I would have, customer support agents missing SLAs, not emailing back in the confirmed amount of time. So that lack of support is really, I think, a critical thing to think about when you have a privacy tool that needs constant customization. So I would put that support piece as the first bucket. And Kat, feel free to kind of jump in as I go through my buckets. But yeah, definitely had experiences where I would be passed around from technical account manager to technical account manager. I think at one point in one of my in-house roles, I was passed to at least half a dozen technical account managers in the span of a couple quarters, who didn't even bother to understand the historical kind of nature of our issues as well. So I'd have to re-explain, the issues we were having with the CMP or, our mobile consent platform. And so that lack of lineage, that lack of, consistent support was definitely just super time consuming and something that really bothered me as I implemented tools. So again, first bucket, lack of support. A second bucket that I think has obviously resonated with a lot of my peers is the current primitive nature of legacy tooling, meaning, the lack of real, I guess, expertise on the vendor side to provide, standard updates to the tool. So, for example, the more we played with the various modules to create this compliance ecosystem in our own orgs, the more we went down what I would call these rabbit holes of customization. If I wanted this to work over in this module, I'd have to tweak something here, which would have a downstream effect, and my assessments. So not having that intelligent interplay built in to the platform was really frustrating, because yes, the tool was customizable, but the further we customized it, the further it became just a Frankenstein of sorts that just didn't really work for us. So kind of second bucket being just the current kind of state of play was super primitive for us. Another third bucket, which I think, Kat, you're probably going to really resonate with, is just the futility of the tool outside of the privacy function, meaning above and beyond. What was that, Kat?
I'm saying absolutely everything resonates. Actually, on your previous points, I would definitely have a question back at you, which is very similar experience. But at what point do you actually just stop trying with the support, and you just give up and realize that this is the support you're going to get? There's never going to be improvements, and you just go through that hump of, let me just try my best with this, feeling really, really dissatisfied at the end of it?
Yeah, great question. And luckily, I was supported by a good, team of engineers that were willing to go through the existing kind of manual documentation available on their support websites. So again, they had to take the initiative to figure out how to debug and kind of customize the tool using the resources that were available. But to your point, Kat, if you're paying, X thousands of dollars for the highest level of support, you kind of expect a more bespoke experience, which we definitely weren't getting. So yeah, really difficult. So going back to like interplay with functions outside of privacy, I never had a situation where I was, approached by my CISO or by product and engineering folks to say, hey, Ron, we see that you've implemented this cool tool. Can we use it too? There was never an instance of that using the legacy platform. It was always, looked at more as solely just a tool for privacy and legal. And I never had folks outside of my org see any utility in the current data mapping feature, which was, again, super primitive. The triage function of the assessment automation, for example, was just really clunky. The integrations with Jira and Confluence, super primitive and not really useful. So again, this idea that a compliance tool should be leverageable outside of my function just wasn't there with this tool at play. And then just lastly, before I'll pass it over to Kat to get her perspective, but obviously with privacy legislation, it's evolving month over month. And so we really had difficulty working with the vendor to understand how we could comply with these emerging requirements around, let's say, for example, when CIPRA came out, the California Privacy Rights Act, which is the update to CCPA, and their, requirement to at least honor or respond to global privacy signals, so GPC. That was something that, you'd expect your consent platform provider to have a good solution for. And I felt like at the time, we were treated as almost guinea pigs to that control or to that new requirement. Instead of being, being told, hey, here's our solution, it was more of, glad you pointed that out. Let's take that back and to our product or, to our our product teams and figure out what you guys need. This also happened with mobile consent as well, where we just felt, again, not getting that right level of support, not seeing that they had the foresight and to anticipate these changes that were coming day to day. So again, those 4 buckets of just lack of support, the primitiveness of the tool, the futility of the tool outside of my function, and then also just dealing with these constantly emerging and complex requirements were again collectively the tipping point for me. But Kat, I would love to hear from you kind of what led you to that point where you're like, this is enough.
Definitely hearing you on some of the points. I think the lack of customer support being handed over time and time again, I think on our end, it resulted with almost not trying, not wanting to have a conversation anymore because you realize it's futile. Your attempts at trying to get help are futile. Another thing that is really important for our business is just having visibility over reporting. And we've never really found reporting to be useful in a platform because no one was willing to log in. And APIs to be particularly hard to deal with and integrate into our Looker instances and any data reporting instances, which is something that's really important for us because we obviously want people to engage with the numbers. We want them to draw their own picture and use that information available to them. And definitely agree with you also on, I wouldn't almost say very rudimentary use of the tool, but I think some tools try to combine so many things together. They sort of grow as a Frankenstein over time, and some parts are better than others. Like you say, they don't really talk to each other in a smart way. They're not designed to talk to each other. You have to really fiddle with pieces to figure out where to update that one special field that will give you the thing you want, potentially later finding out it's not possible. And I think it's through this, like trying to almost grow too fast into everything and not really thinking about what the purpose and the use of the tool is for privacy professionals.
That's really good. What to kind of feed into that, what made you decide to leave like your legacy tool? What was the one thing that kind of pushed that over?
I think for us, we're trying to be very innovative, and we try to have things that are easy to use, great UX, people can interact with it. And I remember this point where at a time with my manager, we were just looking at it going, there must be a better way. This cannot be the only solution to this problem, and there must be other people trying to do this better. And I always like to compare it to where I think privacy professionals are in terms of evolution of the tooling to accountants, because accountants have had the fintech wave and the smart, accounting tools, and they've gone through this. It's no longer just a spreadsheet. And I think we're still stuck in this. There is a smarter spreadsheet, but it's still not the best thing that it could be. And I think we're just battling through that evolution of the tooling.
That's a really good call out too. Like, I mean, it sounds like you're at a really great place now where you have that like innovation. Whereas I think that there's still a lot of places, spaces, especially like larger companies out there that are completely just stuck. Like I see Elizabeth's comment about, there's a huge reluctance to abandon a tool. You invested in it, so make it work. And that's your higher ups, they come, they tell you, you make it work, you paid for this, and then you just kind of walk away. And it's super frustrating. I don't think there's any like one answer, but just coming from like my perspective and like moving off of a legacy tool it was more expensive than Transcend, and it was not, I was going back to Google Sheets. Like it was not worth my time. It wasn't worth the engineering time spend and dollar spend that we were having within that tool. And when that tool that I moved off of was asking me for engineering time without even a good go forward plan, that was the point where I was like, I don't trust this anymore. I'm done, and walked away from it, basically. But the engineering piece of it was like, honestly, it was huge. That was a tipping point, and it was also a way to convince the higher ups that we need to move off of this. Engineers are, it's great when you have that cross-functional support and that collaboration, but if you're not working with privacy engineers, and you're pulling engineers off of other teams like infrastructure or whatnot, and you don't even have like a good go forward plan, the amount of time you're going to be spending with them, that's costly. Like a full-time senior software engineer who's processing, just running scripts to delete some, it's a time suck. And it's not just a time suck. You're not only losing money going towards projects that you should be having that senior software engineer on, but I mean, it's hugely costly. So what I ended up doing was just literally sitting down and saying, like, how many people are touching this, and then how many engineers are touching this, how many senior engineers are touching this, because there's so many, especially once you get into a larger company, there's so many places that privacy touches everything, right? So you're going to be hitting engineering super, super hard. And that was like really the huge tipping point, I think, going to the C-suite and saying, we're spending X amount of dollars on just DSARs. And this is only a deletion request. We're not even talking about access requests. And it was just kind of trying to show that we should be having these engineers spend time on the product. We should not be having them spend time on really rote DSAR operations. And that was, the piece there that we actually really, we found Transcend, thankfully. So.
And how quickly does your initial investment become so much more expensive, right? Another really big thing is going through the years and your renewals. How many times have you gotten new good features that are helping you, that are making it easy for you? And how many times has the cost risen over those years? Mm-hmm. I would say probably every year. And probably very few times have you gotten an email that says, hey, we've introduced this massive new thing because we've listened to what our customers want and made this improvement. And we think it's going to enable you to work better this way. There's very little added value.
And usually when you're with that kind of a tool, you'll get an email, hey, I'm your next new account manager.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, another one. I know we've talked about that before. Ron, did you have something?
No, I guess I would just quickly add, these tools are meant to help you comply with your table stakes requirements when it comes to privacy. I had this one client who was using the legacy consent management platform and was just unable. He was actually starting to get user reports that the cookie banner was, not providing a reject all, or was not, providing a do not sell, or that his user base was also constantly trying to, reflect their choices through selecting, their cookie choices, but time and time again would just be popped up with the incorrect set of choices. So again, if your CMP can't even address table stakes requirements like cookie compliance as a result of e-privacy directive, requirements, it gives you pause to say, it's actually getting me out of compliance versus helping with my compliance. So I think that was a tipping point for a couple of my clients who are using the CMP specifically. So, but yeah, I resonate with everything that both Safaa and Kat are saying around what led them to kind of switch over.
Yeah, thank you guys for going into that. Before we move into our next topic, I think one thing that we can always look back or look into this as, like, look at this from a view of a relationship. With any kind of relationship, what is that other person or that other company or whatever you're dealing with, what are their actions telling you? Do they really care about you as a customer, as a client? Same thing goes for any kind of relationship. What is that other person telling you? Anyways, we'll be right back. I'm just kidding. But we'll go on to the next section. So executive conversations. So let's dig into that a little bit. When you figured out that you needed a new tool, how did you approach your executive team? I'll go with, let's open up with Kat.
Yeah, this is a really good question. I went back to read my old business case, which was quite nice to read because that was me a few years back. And number one, I would have massively improved it now, but it's always good to go down memory lane. I think generally I was in a quite lucky position because we were all aligned on the fact that it wasn't working for us, and we've constantly kept raising these challenges to our leadership, and they were very receptive to, you're a small team, You cannot do everything manually. You cannot burden other teams with providing you with extra support. Is there another way you could figure this out in? And I think that really stems from the fact that we were trying to make the people cost really visible in the tooling. And we had lots of great feedback. I mean, not great feedback, but negative feedback around people interacting with the legacy tooling and the work they had to put in, right? And so when we almost started looking, it wasn't like, you're a horrible team, you're spending this much time trying to improve things. It was very much an encouragement. And when we went in and we looked at multiple vendors, we've done our research, we've done proof of concept, we've tried touching things. And we've actually had a really great product manager within our group helping us, who was looking at a cookie tool and then came back with all of these tools because he was also dissatisfied and just believed this could be done better. So we started opening the conversations through the cost centers and very much talk to the leadership teams around, look, this is how much this is costing you right now in your annual bill. This is how much it's costing you in people bill. This is how much it's costing you in the future people you might have to hire if all of these requirements change. And this is what we potentially think it could cost you. This is the experience that people could have with our platform. This is how easy we could make it for them. And a lot of the really good conversations stemmed from the fact that we do take all the complaints really seriously. So when someone does raise a privacy request with us, we want to deep dive into what their experience was. So we would touch every single Zendesk ticket, go and reread the conversation between our customer agents and the customers, and figure out whether this was an issue somewhere in the process and an experience with our own product, or whether it was a real privacy issue, right? So we were providing this value added service back to the customer support and making sure that when we were deep diving on privacy, it was a privacy issue. It wasn't just, I'm dissatisfied with you and I want to hammer you with requests. I appreciate that's not always possible in all teams and all sorts of businesses, but we've gotten lots of value out of trying to figure out why people raise these and what would be really good for them. And what is the experience they're looking for? Is it, building a better help center over like putting money somewhere else?
That's good. What about your experience, Ron? Similar?
Yeah, first I'll say how incredibly lucky, Kat, to have a leadership team that is just fully supportive and not, angry at the fact that you as a cost center haven't picked the right tool.
We are customer obsessed. So as soon as you can tie it to the customer experience, we're there, we're trying to make it better.
Yeah, no, that's great. For me, and I think a lot of my peers, as privacy functions, it's definitely difficult to have these conversations because we typically don't really get a lot of budget for tooling. So the fact that we, let's say we came to that tipping point, Cam, that this tool isn't working for us and we need something else, coming to that realization in and of itself is just a hard pill to swallow because we've, either the year before, a couple years before, just scrambled to get that budget, begged and pleaded to partner with the CISO to get budget for this. So I would say, traditionally,
sitting in a security team, I fully hear you. It's much easier because all of the security tools just start at an insane price and everyone is really bought into the value that they're bringing. Yeah. So talk to your CISO.
Talk to your CISO, absolutely. And you'll probably, but with this legacy tooling, he wasn't as keen to partner given the futility that I mentioned of this tool from a security perspective. So yeah, coming to that realization is super difficult. And I would say, again, I don't speak for all privacy pros, but we're typically behind the scenes, we're in compliance and we have requirements that we have to deal with. Having these kind of executive level conversations around tooling that doesn't work can be outside of our wheelhouse sometimes, because again, Kat, to your point, we're not engaging with a lot of vendors we're not doing a lot of these POCs that involve super deep scrutiny and partnership cross-functionally. So if we've already tried to get those resources for the first POC and then realize, hey, this tool isn't working for us, the thought of re-engaging those tools to break that news, I think typically for privacy pros is a little bit more difficult. And I have had some clients be in this situation, and I've helped them navigate, how to have these conversations with their exec teams. And I think what's helpful that what I've kind of observed is kind of framing it in the way that, especially with startups that kind of growing in size, saying something to the effect of, as we continue to grow, we're coming to a point where our current legacy tooling just isn't doing it for us and isn't scaling as much as we'd like. And so, framing it from the perspective of a tool that you've outgrown because you as a company are scaling up, for example. So kind of that positive spin on it versus saying, this tool isn't working. Well, why isn't it for this org specifically? Some other things that work really well. And Kat, I think you mentioned this to some degree, of providing some metrics around cost savings. So, and doing your research on the tooling that might be better out there, better fit for purpose in the market is also super beneficial. So coming with a plan of attack, I think is a really good approach for exec teams who don't want to just know what the problem is, but want to know what your solutions are to improve that problem. So again, coming with that data, coming with maybe a list of potential vendors that you're interested in. So yeah, I just say, to wrap up there, traditionally for privacy pros, it's not a particular skill set that we have because we haven't day-to-day engaged as many vendors as a security team would, or like an engineering function would. We have one shot, and it becomes a little harrowing when you have to go back and realize you made a mistake. So
I would definitely suggest getting creative. I think any added value is really important, and I think can give you lots of ammo when you're talking to your executive teams. So just realizing, what do they actually care about? What's the core mission of your business? I'm sure it's not to piss off your customers on a daily basis. I'd be surprised if anyone's business plan was to just be a horrible business. So look at that. Is there a tooling that can provide a more of a seamless experience, which are the things that really matter today? Because we all know how angry we get when we have to log into the third portal to request something we're only probably doing because we're really angry anyways. It's never going to give you a better Trustpilot review as for your business. So what are the other parts of the business you touch and you can influence in your role as a privacy pro? Tag that on. That's your value you're bringing to the team. Definitely highlight it with your teams.
100% agree with that too. You really need to know what they want, what the C-suite wants, and you need to frame it like exactly what you're saying. You need to frame it in that light too. Is it about data sales? Well, great. Privacy teams enabler on data sales. If you want to start selling data, great. We need to have a solid privacy program in order to enable the MarTech and AdTech teams to be able to do that. And we're not only enabling the business, we're protecting the business going forward at the same time. So really trying to reframe ourselves too within orgs as being enablers, I think that there's a lot of times a little bit of negativity around the privacy team. You're just protecting the business from the compliance state. Whereas I think that really coming at your C-suite, whoever's making that decision, come at it from we're enabling this happening, and we're actually pushing the business forward. We're enabling data sales. This is just an example here, but we're enabling data sales by having a solid consent program and also having a solid data mapping tool as well. And super important. I mean, without Transcend, honestly, the legacy provider I was utilizing before, data sales would have been nightmare. Where's the data? Where is it flowing to? Where is it going to? Whereas if you have a solid privacy tool, that's something you can go to your C-suite saying, this is going to be your kind of one-stop shop reference for these other problems you're seeing throughout the business that has anything to do with data. basically. Like I need to know where the data is, who's doing what to it. And that's basically what you're going to be the person for. And then just seeing like, how are we adding value and how can we attach a dollar sign to the value that we're adding to our org as well. Yeah, but completely agree. Get creative.
Yeah. And just to add a particular use case, and Cam, you know this as much as I do, there's been a lot of change in the privacy industry in terms of folks leaving and finding new roles. And, you know, as you enter a new market or a new company, and you might be inheriting something that you don't want, or, you know, that is the legacy privacy tool, use that opportunity to demonstrate, you know, to actually have another POC, or to broach the subject of engaging a new tool. I think, you know, in your first 60, 90 days, come up with a plan to assess, you know, the fit for purposeness of the existing tool. So use the opportunity of the fact that you're new to the org to suggest, you know, better tooling. I think, yeah. And again, Cam, you've probably seen a lot of this kind of change recently as well. So
that's such a good point too, because I know offline yesterday we were talking with Kat, and that was we talked about that a little bit. I think if you're in the position of making these decisions, have the curiosity. Like if you don't have the time to actually look at a better way, then what are you doing? Like you obviously need to figure some other stuff out too, but like you need to be able to have time to use your curiosity to look at better ways to solve problems, because they're always going to change. And like you said, this privacy landscape is always going to continue to evolve. So,
and also ask the hard questions, right? Like when you're choosing a vendor, they're here to serve you, not the other way around. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. Ask them, how are you going to help me solve this problem? These are the challenges I have. Show it to me. Don't just go with your standard demo and then, you know, never do anything about it. Be really, really inquisitive over what is it that I'm getting? How are you going to support me?
Right.
You would do it with anything else you would be buying, hopefully.
Well, you'd think. Some people just be on Amazon. They just be ordering everything they can, getting it delivered to the door, but that's a different topic. Let's talk about selecting the right vendor. I think nowadays the most important thing going into this, before I let you guys dig in, is finding a vendor that's flexible, finding a product that can grow with your privacy needs and program, not something that you have to adapt to, if that makes sense. How do you select that right vendor? How do you know how to choose that right vendor? How do you deal with pushback from executives? Would love to learn your take on that, Kat, and everyone else here.
I'm a big fan of just writing down what I want. Big fan of lists. So I think my team knows really well that every vendor selection and every we're trying to achieve this starts with a list of things you're looking for. And then you just go into it, right? You do your preliminary screenings, you maybe decide who you actually want to talk to. You look around some websites. We all know who the Go to Review websites are. Go there, find some interesting tooling, and then dig around and figure out what you can find about them. Start becoming really inquisitive, you know, book some demos in, and then really score these people. Like ask your hard questions, mention your challenges, like we talked about it. Maybe talk about some of the goals your business has, right? Like if you know you're going to have a massive growth, or you're pre-planning for another acquisition, there might be some key questions you really want answered. How is this going to work? You have some specific privacy plans and compliance plans and planned for your next year, next 2 years. You need to expand into new territories. Ask people about it and keep that on your list, right? Really pre-plan what is it that you want. And I would also suggest, like, don't go to your exec team with this like half-baked, I might want a tool, I don't really know, and I've been looking at. They don't care. They want the answer. They want certainty in what you are advising them. They want to know that you have figured out what you want and you are solid on why you want it.
I 1000% agree with the list of requirements, Kat. And, you know, if you're at this point where you're selecting another vendor, this is not your first rodeo. This is your second rodeo. So you should be coming with the lessons learned from your previous interactions with your legacy provider. So in addition, having that list of requirements, have you done a gap analysis around, what you were asking the first rodeo versus now you understand the gaps in the current tool that you'd want the new tool and new vendor to address? So yeah, having just a really well-defined list of requirements is absolutely key. And you've been through the POC already, so making sure that, hey, did I engage the right teams at the previous POC? Did I have customer experience? Did I have that person and product who I work with now on the regular on this legacy tool? So coming with those lessons learned on the previous POC is just, I think, just table stakes for re-engaging another vendor. Something else that you might want to consider as part of the POC, and Safaa, I know you could probably get into how deep we as Transcend go, but making sure that as prep for the POC that you are getting what you want from the vendor. And Kat, you hit the nail on the head, making sure that you're asking the right questions, making sure that, so for example, if Jira and Confluence integrations are super important to you because you're an Atlassian house and you use that tooling and your product and engineering teams use that tooling, what are the integrations there? So is Slack super important to you when it comes to assessment triage? So just making sure that you have that full list based on the lessons learned from your previous POC, I think is super critical. But Safaa, I'd love to hear your thoughts on
and also,
sorry,
one more before Safaa goes is you also really reminded me of the fact that, like, invite your power users. Who are the people you really want to work with this tool day in, day out, and have their view, right? Where are your customer support agents? Where is your compliance team? Where are your engineers? Where are all of these people who will almost definitely have an opinion on what didn't work for them before? Why were they so allergically not logging into this tool before? What is it that they're missing? Ask them.
Whoever hated your previous tool, make sure they're at your POC for this.
Absolutely. They should be the first person you're inviting to every meeting and then having a deep brief with afterwards.
Yeah, I agree both with what you're saying here for sure. Like you come in with that list and then take your learnings. If your consent manager was not even working, it was not even a consent manager, you couldn't hardly do anything with your website. You need to bring in your product team if that was who was involved, your front end dev if that was who was involved, for sure. Bring in the folks who hated the tool the most. I think too, going in and because privacy is so cross-functional, understanding everyone's pain points that's your power. Like, what is engineering's pain points with this tool? What's product's pain points with this tool? What's security's pain points? Because we always want security to be on board with this for sure. I definitely think that from the Transcend side, the data mapping tool is always like the sweetest piece on the security team portion of it too, just in terms of like adding like an actual solid piece of value to the security team, cybersecurity team. But understanding, taking those pain points and then summarizing it for folks, because a lot of times folks are like pitchforks, like don't trust you with getting another tool in here. So kind of just taking in that information and summarizing it for individuals as well too, I think is super helpful, because in your cross-functional teams that you've been working with and that have probably had their time affected greatly by a tool that wasn't working the way you wanted it to, they're probably upset, and also having them feel like the privacy team is actually listening to the pain points, huge. You'll actually have buy-in. You're going to have buy-in from the folks who the C-suite might actually be listening to more. So if you even have buy-in from somebody like what's the data engineering org think of your tool? Can you get buy-in from them? Like, how do you solve a problem for them? Or how do you at least alleviate a pain point where maybe a couple of folks on their team are being affected by just processing DSARs or setting up a consent tool that doesn't work? Bring in those folks, and those folks, honestly, you want to solve problems for them 100%, but they will more than likely, they could very well be better positioned than you, even on the privacy team, for the C-suite to be listening to. And I do think that there's also a bit of like a cultural shift too between the United States and like EU, UK, just tie-in too. compliance is 100% a story, no matter what types of what kind of compliance you're in. It's a story, including privacy compliance. And I think that EU, UK, just probably because of the GDPR and having e-privacy directive and just having a longer history with actually having privacy in legislation, there's a bit more of like a willingness a lot of times to at least try to check boxes. Whereas the United States, I think a lot of times you're still educating. You're just square zero. I'm educating like my C-suite. I'm educating these folks who I'm working with in product, who are working hard with me. That's not easy. And I think that education piece of it too is like another layer when you're in the state side of things too, where you're really trying to say like, okay, whereas maybe you can bring in the privacy compliance aspect of it in the UK and the EU, also making sure that you're really looking at those business pain points for those other teams that privacy is hitting hard, and that the operations are hitting hard on those teams. And then looking for those that you can actually show the business value for. And for sure, same, I'm sure, Kat, you can speak to this too, but business value 100% necessary for the EU, UK as well. But
the only thing I would say is like, don't just make it the stick, right? I come from it from a very European perspective. People don't often just want to hear the negative story of you must do something, right? It's a good start. Of course, it helps to get your foot in the door and it helps to present your case, but definitely tag on the value. Show how you can make something so much better, and bring those creative points of view. Involve people early on. And then if you can get the engineer in the door biscuits, that works really well. They're always interested in food. So offer them some snacks and I'm sure they'll get through one POC, no problems.
Yeah, engineers and snacks, always a good combo.
That's a good point. That's actually very true, I'm sure. Sorry, engineers. Let's move on to talking about like what is your North Star when it comes to when you decided to implement something like Transcend for the first time. How did that experience go from your perspective, Kat?
Well, we had a really fun story because I have foolishly decided to do all of this in a month's time and switch off everything in a month's time, and then completely switch off the legacy tool because we decided not to renew. And then I decided to go on a 3-week holiday after that month. So it was very much like a now or never. And I have worked very hard around the clock, and I'm sure there's recordings which now my team uses and laughs at because you can see how like desperately stressed I was in those recordings, trying to explain to everyone like, don't worry, this is very different than the one before, but it'll work. It'll be fine. Just trust this and then just work with these videos. And yeah, it worked. I went through like a month of trying to convert everything into Transcend. And I'm talking, DSARs, data mapping, cookies, consent management. I'm talking the full works in a month. And massive shout out to Mike, who probably at that point I saw more often than I saw my own partner every single day on calls, just because it was obviously quite a large decision. So we have really committed to this, and it went great. I went on a 3-week holiday. I was without a phone in Greece, absolutely no contact with my work, terrified every single day. Came back and they all said it was fine. So that was the best outcome it could have been. But the North Star was just get through this, pretty much. I think if I did it again, I probably wouldn't do that. I wouldn't decide to do everything in a month and then switch off my phone, no signal. I'd probably like really, really plan it. But even though we went into it quiet, like, let's just do this and sort of hop in and make the leap of faith, it'll work out. It went well. And we're now 2 years into using Transcend and we're very happy.
Love that.
But yeah, maybe a cautionary tale. Definitely don't do that.
You mean the way you did it?
Yes. Yeah. I think this is more like a lessons learned. Please don't do it like I did. Rely on Transcend more. Plan it out. Probably don't switch everything all in one go.
It's funny, Kat, because I'm actually heading to Greece without a phone either. So we'll see how that goes. But I completely agree with with everything you mentioned. I think Cam, for my North Star, I would just definitely go back to my list of requirements. You know, am I hitting everything that's on that list? You know, what's my kind of point? What's my percentage point where I feel that this is a good tool in comparison with the legacy tool or other competitors? So having your list of critical table stake needs, making sure that those are ticked off as you go through the POC, I think is a great North Star. And obviously, to Safaa's point, at the end of the day, we are compliance professionals that also need to understand that we work for a business that needs to make money, generate income and revenue, and push out products. So ultimately, how is this tool supporting not only me to make these compliance reviews more efficient, for example, but also how can it be leveraged to support my product and engineering teams so that they can do their job effectively? So also a really good North Star in a tool is how holistically is it going to be supporting the overall business goals of the company. And Safaa, I'm sure you have some thoughts there too, but.
Yeah, no, completely agree from there. The need to not only push out the products and go to market, like you got 2 weeks, we're doing this, you got tomorrow, we're doing this. But the business is constantly shifting, constantly changing, and you don't want to be the team that looks like they stalled anything. That looks like they were at anything else other than the enabler as well. And especially from the privacy compliance aspect of it, I think coming from the US, you want to be the enabler as much as possible. Bring your biscuits, right? And in terms of for the North Star, I think for my experience, what I really needed, we're B2C, right? We're a B2C business, and number one is always going to be customers. What you were talking about, Kat, too. You want to make sure that customer experience is 100% as much of the time as you possibly can. So what are you going to do for the customers? The compliance is also a song and a dance too, right? You want to make sure that you nailed your basics that are upfront and that the customer actually feels comfortable. If you need to go back and fix something afterwards, fine. But making sure that your consent is there and folks they have those options, that your do not track signals are working correctly, and you have your DSARs nailed down. Super important. Get your upfront requirements done first, right? And then be able to kind of work from there. And also had a very similar experience to you, Kat. Saw Mike a lot up in a couple less than 2 weeks with DSARs, and we were huge backend craziness of connection for DSARs too. So, and that was migrating off of a legacy tool that just did not work. It was a glorified kind of CRM, just did not actually process what we needed it to be. So we had a huge backlog and was able to get up and running with that. And then very short thereafter too. Sounds like we had a very similar timeline there, Kat.
I would definitely say, Safaa, hearing you on this, absolutely. Do your DSARs and do your consent. Don't bother about having data mapping set up in a week, because you're probably losing sleep over nothing.
And super quickly, for everyone who doesn't know, you guys are talking about Mike, our CTO, right?
That's right.
Yes.
So yeah, very, very knowledgeable, expert in the tool, obviously, and the bespoke service to you too is not a surprise.
Yeah, I would absolutely say the only reason why we've got through this is purely because of the Transcend team.
Oh, well, that's awesome to hear. And before we get to the last part with some key takeaways for everyone that's listening and that's tuning in, I know we might go a few minutes over, but we did start a few minutes late, so we apologize. But Kat, Ron, Safaa, what do you think are some need to haves just to kind of wrap all of this up? I know, Kat, with your experience in cybersecurity and privacy, would love to hear your take on some of your need to haves when selecting a tool or in any kind of tool you're trying to find.
Yeah, I would definitely say, we all realize the sort of economic situation we're in. So whenever you can cost cut and reduce the tooling, that's a plus. You're
Right.
doing a great job. So, I have a big budget full of very expensive security tools. Like I said, they're all quite funny. So a lot of it is about how do they fit together? How well are they meshing? Are any other teams within the business going to use your privacy tooling? And the biggest plus for us is yes, that was tick box number one. Yes, they are. And we can show that, we're improving the workflows and the lives of many other people within the business other than maybe your customer support team, your customer success team, and your customers. So we regularly find that our data experts go into the tooling and they deep dive and they want to look into things. They want to play with stuff. They want to figure out what else can they improve with the help of tooling. Similarly with security, it is always an open conversation, right? Where can I find my information? What else can I do with the tooling? And I think by now it's almost become like a creativity contest within our teams where people just try and see what else they could do with Transcend, which I think it's really positive. It's always, I've had another message today where they're like, do you think Transcend would do this for me? And we looked into it and we went like, maybe let's ask, let's see. It could be yes, and if no, they might advise us on some cool way to do this in. So I think, be really open-minded and see who is getting value out of this. And I would say definitely your data and your security experts are your big supporters in this. Show them your tools, ask them how better to do stuff. What value can they get?
That's good.
Yeah, and it's just so demonstrable, Cam, of how Transcend works, kind of end to end. Hearing Kat's experience, I've heard so many great things about post sales support, the willingness of our team to just go above and beyond, which leads me to one of the must haves is a sufficient support function. And I use sufficient as a baseline. So someone that's actually, meeting SLAs based on the level of support that you've purchased, I think is just really a baseline for me in terms of a need to have. And another thing, before I will pass it over to Safaa, is just sophisticated automation, meaning that the different modules within the platform actually speak to one another. And I'll take, a super quick example. If you're inputting something in your data map, or you're having something discovered through our automated discovery tooling, having that be permeated throughout the modules so that you can actually see the lineage of data throughout a data map, or understanding the end-to-end view of where that piece of sensitive PII might be traversing through my ecosystem. Which again, with the legacy tooling is basically non-existent. I had a former client who purchased the legacy tool for the purposes of a data map, and was just so essentially, probably dumbstruck is the word, at the primitiveness of that map, and how it was not very useful to anyone above and beyond the legal org. So again, this kind of concept of sophisticated automation, integration between modules, making sure that you're not dealing with, and my CPO community has always struggled with finding the right tool for these different components of privacy program operationalization. So finding a vendor for DSARs, a good vendor for CMP, a good vendor for your data map, whereas Transcend has that all-in-one. You have an all-in-one, shop of really good automated tooling. So again, I think that's just hypercritical, and for me would be a need to have as I would look for another tool. But Safaa, I'm sure you have your own list of need to haves as well.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I mean, with both what you, Kat, and Ron are saying here, for sure. Like, there's a definite need for automation, especially when you're B2C too, I think. Just being able to have folks feel like you are on top of their requests and that you're listening to them. And then for sure, in order to get automation up, like you need to have that great support feature too. My prior tool, my support was there, but so Transcend is an engineering led organization. Like Mike, our CTO, co-founder, and Ben, our CEO, too, are both coming from technical backgrounds, and this is very much like engineering led. So there was a huge difference between just the skill level between the prior tool I was on at my prior org and Transcend, just from that too. So even though I did have the highest level of support and I would get answers and SLAs on time, the tech talent wasn't there. And it definitely was taking a lot more of pointed questions we asked Transcend when we did the POC was like, this can't take more than like X amount of hours from my engineering team. And they were very upfront about like what, we'd always try to be upfront about that too. Like what's going to take time or what could potentially take time from an engineering team versus what like you can just let her rip and kind of like set it and forget it. And I think our DSAR module especially is like really great with that. And as is, majority of our other modules too. Then that's a huge piece too, where you get a tool and you don't have to have engineering time suck. That's just, kind of a baseline. And yeah, but otherwise I think that, just being able to have that great support that is also not only great support, but that that they understand the security and the sensitivity of the data that they're likely utilizing, just understanding what that customer success team looks like is huge, and definitely need to have that.
Cam, before we get into key takeaways or maybe in place of that, were there any like interesting questions from folks or
I did see a comment about, which is funny enough, I know you've brought this up, about how does Transcend offer certifications like OneTrust does?
Yeah, we're heading towards that. Because privacy pros love their certifications. I'm sure it's the same for security. Yep. But I would say to counter that, the ease of using Transcend doesn't lead itself to actually needing a certification to use a module. But that being said, something that's definitely top of mind for us. But Kat, I see you nodding your head in agreement that yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I love how because I really wanted to respond to Ruth and I wanted to go, no, because it's easy to use. You don't need to go to school to learn how to log in. And then I went like, oh, maybe someone might be asking about like, could I learn more about privacy? So I wanted to make sure that the correct question is being answered. But yeah, you definitely do not need a special certification to log in and start working with it. And I almost feel like if you do, something's gone wrong. Like you can use your phone. You don't need to go to school to use a phone. You shouldn't need to go to school to use any sort of tool, unless you're like working in a lab somewhere and it's very specific. But definitely not for software.
There you go.
That she's basically saying, thanks, Ruth. She just wants to try to learn more about how Transcend works.
And we also have that in Safaa. I don't know if you could speak to
on our website
resources that we have online, and it's publicly available.
Because it makes us a little bit different from other vendors too. So
yeah, I mean, we have our documentation, but we also definitely have a few resources online that I think is super powerful. And really great question, Ruth. Thank you for bringing that up too. I know, like, you don't need a certification to know actually how to use the tool, but definitely understanding how you can leverage the tool to make it even more impactful in your organization would be super helpful. So we have a few different things that we would offer. I mean, definitely please sign up for our snippets, our newsletter, and also we do have a Slack community as well. I mean, if you want to reach out to us, we can send you a link on how to sign up for that too. But it's definitely a great way to get connected with us if you have any questions, and we can send you some more resources as well. And then also just being able to be part of that very broad privacy community as well. And not necessarily everyone on there is necessarily using the tool for Transcend, but there's a lot of folks who are. So definitely glad you reached out, and we can definitely send you some more pointers for materials to take a look at there.
And I would say like a lot of non-techie people on my team as well are happily using it and they're learning more. And it's really nice to see them like day on day out ask like, ooh, maybe I could look into this integration, and all of a sudden becoming a little bit more interested in technical solutions. So it's definitely very beginner friendly. Tried and tested.
Love it.
Yeah.
If anyone else has any other questions, please throw them in, or feel free to reach out, obviously, to either of us, Safaa, Ron, myself. If I know we're kind of over time here, we can go over some key takeaways from our conversation today. And if you want to learn more information or anything like that, please reach out to me and be happy to share that with you. So main topics that we covered today, just to go back over that for anyone that didn't catch in the beginning. Key takeaways, executive buy-in. If any of you want to take anything from that point, just to make any small points here before the next one.
Be creative.
Be creative. Love it.
Yeah.
Cost savings for the next one. Ways to show cost savings within your organization is a huge point, especially with a privacy tool. Like we were talking about before, Kat, finding ways to, can I eliminate this tool and have this tool do both things at once? Something that's more intuitive, more flexible, save me money.
Don't think about just direct cost savings again. Like think about the people input, right? How many people are spending their time on having to do something? Their time and money you're paying them also matters.
Great point. Another one is nail the look. I'll let Safaa take this one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if you're a B2C business, but even for B2B, you want to make sure that the folks who are utilizing your tool are comfortable. That's number one. Like you want to have that excellent customer experience. Make sure that compliance, again, it's a story. Make sure that you are nailing that look, that song, and that dance, and that you're always incrementally trying to make your privacy program better. So you might go back in a couple months from now, and you might change something retrospectively, but you're always like upfront. I want to make folks as comfortable as possible, and make them feel like we're respecting their choices and also listening to what they have to say, and then from there be able to go on and develop your privacy responses.
Next one is cross-functional collaboration. I know that you had brought that up earlier, Safaa, and couldn't agree more. Like streamlining operations, and that's so necessary, especially and I would imagine being Kat in your position, you're both security and privacy, so you're like that. You're wearing multiple hats there.
Oh, the constant fight we have. So we have lots of shorthand for our teams and lots of fun names. So we absolutely love giving our teams acronyms, and some of the stuff we come up with is horrible. But somehow we still keep talking about ourselves as a security team, even though I started in privacy. It's always the security team. And almost every single meeting starts with security and privacy team. You all also need to be privacy professionals.
You got to change that dynamic, Kat. Put privacy first. I'm just kidding.
I try. Every single day I try. And then I get very excited when one of them is like, I want to learn about privacy. And they do. They're very open-minded.
A note here to start writing a book about all security and privacy acronyms. I think that should be something, because they love their acronyms, and so do all the privacy laws. So we might as well just create a book for everybody.
We were the cephalopods, Kat. So I was working with one engineer from Martech who was awesome. Just, this was very cross-functional. Needed, a cross-functional partner there for the Martech ad tech side. But we call ourselves the cephalopod privacy team.
Yeah, we became Spenny because we joke that everything we buy is expensive. So our team name is Spenny. I'm not joking. We do actually call each other Spenny, because it's security, privacy, engineering. So we have security engineers, security consultants, we have privacy consultants, we have privacy professionals, and we also have site reliability engineers that help us in terms of our infrastructure, privacy, and security. So we've kind of grown and became a Spenny team.
Love that. Let's show some engineering love. I mean, that's the other topic of key takeaways: engineering time spend. It's I'll let Safaa take that one.
Yeah, I mean, engineering time spent is so valuable. You want them, again, like what you said a little bit earlier there, Ron, about especially if you're at a company that's just your whole, if you're not a 501c3, you're not a not-for-profit, you're a company, you're there to make money, making sure that your engineering teams are actually focusing on what they're there to do. So working on the product, working on infrastructure, working on anything that's going to help push the business forward. You don't want to have your engineers doing rote, redundant privacy tasks, running scripts that they don't need to be doing when you could be operationalizing that and automating that within a privacy tool.
Yeah. And just finding a champion in the engineering org and product org to work with on a day-to-day basis. I think a lot of the times, especially for more legal-minded privacy pros, they're somewhat working in a silo. So I definitely, encourage sitting down with your engineering team and developing that rapport, because come tool time, come POC time, they're going to be incredibly valuable stakeholders and will be definitely needed for the success of the tool and its operationalization. So yeah, engineering is great partners.
And I would also add, like, shout out that you're doing this on your internal comms tool, on Slack, whatever you use, say it. Because
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if out of, few hundred, I mean, depending on the size of your company, few hundred engineers, there wouldn't be even one that is interested. And people who are usually doing engineering, they're very interested. They want to help you solve challenges. They will have a personal interest in privacy and security, and they will want to help. And in my team specifically, I have someone who started on a completely different side of the business, and it's now a security privacy engineer in my team, just because they were really into it and they really wanted to help. So you could inadvertently be building out your own engineering team by just telling folks you're doing it.
Yeah,
So you have to go steal from engineering.
Scheme.
You're part of the positive change that's needed in this time, like having that switch of just being an engineer and kind of molding privacy engineers, like having that mindset of privacy and security in mind in the same sense. It's huge. I don't know if anybody, I forget his name, but off topic. It's just it's awesome to see the privacy engineering realm start to build, especially nowadays. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I would say, like, when I joined the team, there was two people doing privacy. Now we're, privacy security, we have engineers, SREs. In 2 years, massive growth in that industry. So, like, really do not underestimate yourself. You can bring a lot of value to your business. You just really need to sell it, and there'll be plenty of people who are interested.
Love that. Last one is privacy under one umbrella. I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but Safaa, does this go kind of towards what Kat was saying before about finding a tool that you can kind of have that suite in one tool for all your privacy?
I think Ron and Kat, you both touched on this too, where not only do you want to have everything in just like one tool, but it should be integrated too. Like, it shouldn't be in a silo. Like, why would in the world would your data mapping not be connected at all, period, to your DSAR? And you should have the ability as like as an admin to be able to switch on and switch off, like how your data mapping interacts with your DSAR. But I mean, that's just kind of table stakes. And I think, that's definitely privacy under one umbrella, having your one-stop privacy shop all in one tool for sure, and actually having it integrate, which we do really well at Transcend. I mean, I was blown away when I first found that as a customer, that how well everything actually integrates. But then also privacy under one umbrella, like, you don't want to get siloed in a company. Like, you'd be surprised, like, customer service can all of a sudden create their own privacy basically operations by themselves, and then they didn't know that the privacy team even existed. So really, you want to have everything be a one-stop shop. The privacy is underneath one umbrella. You don't have multiple teams, especially if you have subsidiaries. You don't want your subsidiaries to be in their own little kind of black box of, I'm processing these DSARs, they're coming in from this entry point, and then that's not happening over HQ. Like, you need to be able to have a tool that will actually be able to handle multiple subsidiaries and multiple different places that these DSARs can be coming in, and not have it get stuck in different orgs. And then you don't, as a privacy team, you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I love that, Safaa. And last thing I'll say is, and you mentioned this as well, Transcend is an engineering-led, engineering-built tool. That being said, the level of experience and expertise in privacy at this company is above and beyond anything that I've ever expected. So the fact that we have end-to-end kind of expertise from an industry perspective, the fact that we're kind of building privacy controls on top of a tool that is engineering first, it's just a somewhat of an analogy in terms of how that actually plays out in real life. We are privacy folks that interplay with engineering and security, so our tool needs to do that as well, to do both things well. So yeah, this concept of privacy under one umbrella, just making sure that you have a tool that can help you operationalize end to end your privacy program, I think is just incredibly critical. So
awesome. Well,
yeah.
I know we went over. Thanks for everyone that stayed with us. Really appreciate the time, and thank you, all three of you, for being here. This has been great, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.